there, Chef Shelley here. This channel is for passionate home cooks who would love to get paid for it, but they don't want to go to culinary school or work in a restaurant. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to subscribe and click that little bell so that you don't miss a video. There are a million different things that you can do if you love to cook and you want to get paid for it. And they all have their pros and cons. So the first thing generally that people think of when they love to cook and they want to get paid for it is culinary school, right? Culinary school is great at teaching you how to cook and how to work in a restaurant or in a hotel. So culinary school is not great if you don't have tens of thousands of dollars. I think CIA is maybe up to 80,000 now, or you don't want to take on all that kind of debt. So if you don't want to wait a year or two to be able to start working, or really if you don't want to work in a restaurant or a hotel, because that's what they teach. So number two, the second thing we all dream about when we love to cook and we want to get paid for it is, of course, being a chef. And when we're starting out, we think that being a chef means being a chef in a restaurant. Pros. Yeah, for this, I'm not gonna lie, I really can't think of any. The cons are you have to work holidays and weekends. The money is really generally a low crap hourly wage unless you're a higher up chef, which by the time you get to that, you're probably handling staffing and inventory and menu development, and then you're not even actually doing the cooking, which is what you probably wanted to do in the first place. Restaurant culture can be really shitty, and not even for just the frequently talked about sexism and racism and everything else, but the lifestyle of people that work nights can just be tough. If you know, you know, am I right? So number three, another thing that passionate home cooks dream about when you think about it is, having your own restaurant, or more recently, maybe even just a food truck. Okay, pros here, you actually get to own your own business instead of working for someone else. You get to make all the decisions, you get to have the exact menu you want, you get to make the profit. Now, the cons of this are excruciatingly high overhead. You know, the cost of restaurant space or even starting out with a food truck is just insanely high. And you have to be able, again, to handle all the staffing and all the inventory. And again, that's not cooking. So the profit you also make is going to be minus all the cost of that overhead and staff and everything else. So maybe if that's not an option, then you start thinking about things that don't require culinary school or restaurant work or massive overhead. So the easiest thing people start into next is maybe doing some of your own catering. So let's talk about this, because this is where a lot of people start. Pros. Again, it's your business. You get to make all the decisions. You get to decide the menus. You can cook the food that you want to cook. You can decide your own schedule. You can hire people to do the work that you don't want to do, like dishes and cleaning up and loading and unloading. Okay, cons. It's your business and you have to make all the decisions. I know that sounds funny, but it's kind of a double-edged sword there. So even though you get to decide what you're going to cook, you still need to do the food that the people who want to pay you are going to want to eat. You know, catering again is generally nights, weekends, and holidays, especially busy around December, when you might be wanting to spend time with your own family. Clients only really throw so many events or have so many, catered things during the year. So you're in a constant cycle of selling, bringing in new jobs, and then, back to that, hiring people. You hire some people to help you, and then you have to deal with it if people not showing up, people doing a bad job, and it reflects on you and your business. You have all the liability for what they do. So if that sounds like a lot, another option, number 5, you can do a home bakery business. With the development and widespread of the cottage laws, you can now do baking out of your own home. So pros, number 1, you get to decide your own business. You get to decide what you're making, when you're making it, how you price it. Again, you get to have your own business where you get to make all the decisions. So that's definitely a pro. You get to work from home. That's a huge pro. No overhead. You make all the profit. Excuse me. So some of the cons of this are cottage laws right now don't cover cooking, just baking, unless you're in one of those MECO areas that are just starting out, and I'll link below to a video where I talk about that. They're actually starting in some places to license home kitchens for cooking. That's super exciting, but it's really small areas. So I'll link to that video in the description. So back to your baking business, if you want one. It can be extremely difficult to make good money if you're selling cookies by the dozen. Even when it comes to high dollar things like wedding cakes, the massive amount of your time that goes into making them makes it less profitable than a retail business that's paying people $10 an hour to decorate their cake that they sell and they design. So it can be really hard to compete with that. You may really find that for the hours you're having to put into it, your profit is just really not as great compared to all the work it takes. So, number 6, if you want to cook and you want to do your own thing, there's being a private chef. All right, pros. You get to cook all the time, so that's awesome. You get to have a stable salary. That might be something you're really interested in. You only have to learn really the likes and needs of, how to cook for one family. So some cons. Well, you only make that salary, so you're not really in control of how much money you can make. You might not love the family. They might be demanding or rude. They might want you to serve. Then you have to start working nights or much longer days. You're basically an employee. So at the end of the day, you do what you're told. It's an employee relationship. That's how you get paid. So then, number 7, and of course I saved the best for last. Of course I'm totally biased, as you know if you've seen any of my videos or been here with me for any amount of time. Let's talk about being a personal chef, having your own personal chef business. Pros, you have your own business, you get to make all the decisions, you don't have any overhead really, you get to keep all the profit, you get to decide the scope of what you cook. You can have a regular schedule, cooking for the same clients over and over. You get to decide your service area and where you'll go. If you're only doing weekly meal prep, you only work days, not nights, weekends, or holidays. You decide how much money you want to make by how much you want to work. So you decide how much you want to work, part-time, full-time, how many days a week. Typically, it's higher profit than the rest of these. You decide how much money you want to make and you can do it. So let's talk about the cons. Again, you own the business. You have to make all the decisions. Sometimes that sounds better than it really is. It's a lot of responsibility. It can be scary. You know, most people aren't used to having responsibility for how much money they're making. So you need to learn how to get clients. If you don't work, you don't get paid. If you don't set your pricing right, you won't make good money. Now, within a personal chef business, there are different services that you can do too. And again, working out the pros and cons, in my opinion, one clearly stands above the rest. And I talk about it here all the time. For consistent work, consistent schedule, and the most money you can make. And if you want to learn more about personal chef services and which one hits all three of those, subscribe and hit that little bell, because next week you'll get reminded when I come out with the next video, and I am going to go deep into the top 3 services that most personal chef businesses offer, especially when they're just starting out, and which one is the best. And you can look around at personal chefs who've been doing this for a long time, and typically they're only doing this one service. I'm telling you, if you're a passionate home cook and this is something that you're interested in, the clients are out there and they are hungry for what you're cooking.